we face a collision of crises. And we're asking ourselves this question: what do we do? We're going to go on a journey of system change. We're going to go through these questions. To change the system, what needs to change? And what is this system that we're actually talking about? So there's 4 dimensions of system change that I'm going to walk through. And then we're going to have a chance to go deeper into this conversation with Daniel Schmachtenberger, who's been an amazing friend and mentor and guided a lot of what I'm going to share with you guys tonight. So the first dimension of system change is the societal sectors that support the development of society. So this is governance, how resources are coordinated and justice is sustained. This is economics, how value is produced and shared. This is infrastructure, the physical inventions that support society like energy, technology, transportation. And within these societal sectors are social sectors that support the development of people. This is culture, how worldview and values are expressed through means such as art, music, leisure, and language. Education, how learning is facilitated across generations. And well-being, how people are supported in remaining happy and healthy. And so you could say this is the outline of the system. And we come to events like this and we see all these meaningful things happening across all of these sectors. A lot of people doing really cool stuff within all of these sectors. And yet, do you ever feel like you question if we're just frenetically shifting around deck chairs on the Titanic? Do you ever have a sense that there's something missing to our approach? That we're not getting to a deeper, more root issue? Where there's something off with our strategy? Well, at the core of this system, there's something that drives behavior in all of these areas. You guys have a sense of what that is? Money, what else? Humans, yes. We're at the center of the system. And so the third dimension of system change is self. It's how people, individuals, become more capable at both being and doing. And I'm going to unpack this one a little more and spend a lot of time on the last dynamic as well. And so people are at the center of this whole system, and the system actually arises out of who we are being. We are the raw materials that's actually building this system. And so when we're at events like this and we get that sense that there's something off, it gets an interesting introspection to really ask, like, has the raw materials changed? Or are we using the same raw materials thinking we're actually building something new? There's millions of people around the world that are answering this question, what do we do, coming to events like this? But how many of them have first sincerely answered this question? Who do we need to be? Who do we need to be for a new system to arise? You know, Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see in the world. That really being the change starts with being. And in the modern world, who are people supported to become? Human beings who rise into doing, or human doings who take breaks in being? And what are people typically becoming better at? Doing or being? We're doing, right? Our whole education system is designed around that. And are human doings choosing their actions from love or from fear? And you can say this triangle shape here is a representative of the primary state that most people in the modern world are living in. And so if our external world is merely a reflection of this internal world, then how do we first flip this triangle? Recognizing the wisdom of people like Albert Einstein, that the greatest problems can't be solved at the same level of thinking that created them. How do we flip this triangle to become human beings who are receptive, action-ready, and available to be moved by the self-organizing power of love? So we're all woke as fuck, so we don't need this, right? We live in this age where it's incredible. The internet's this revolutionary breakthrough in technology that's woke a lot of people up. It's even helped some people become ultra spiritual. And for better or worse, there are millions of people around the world who are waking up, who are being transformed, who are rising to do things from a transformed place within themselves, who are coordinating and finding themselves in all of these sectors. They know they're the game changers. They're the people that their dharma is to help build new models in all of these different sectors of society. But who's coordinating this? Well, it's not the traumatized children in adult bodies running our countries or large corporations. How do we fund, govern, and organize a new system without being limited to the traditional structures of for-profits, nonprofits, partisan governments? Right? Who's coordinating this? How do we transition from a complicated, controlled system to one that is more emergent, complex, that arises naturally and moves us closer to the beauty of nature? So the fourth dimension of system change is the game. It's the coordination function. It's what drives human behavior en masse. And we're all playing this game. We have an education system that was built to train us for it. It's what moves resources. It's what moves us. It's what helps us survive. And for a long time, we've been playing this win-lose game, right? Where the objective is short-term profit, where choice-making is based in command and control hierarchy, where the development of people is to train people for roles and results, where motivation is based in incentives to maximize profit, and performance assessment is short-term financial results, and benefit being concentrated in the hands of owners, investors, and executives. And this game has produced tremendous results for society, tremendous innovation. It's arguably built the capacities that we actually need to make this next leap. And it's also created devastating social injustice, environmental injustice. And you could theme this era that we're in as a phase that's exponential technology, exponential gap between the winners and the losers. This, believe it or not, are shark fins. As long as sharks are worth more dead than alive, and technology increases our capacity to catch, market, sell shark fin soup, the more we move towards statistics like this. 66% of sharks species facing extinction. Now you apply the same process to whales, to dolphins, to the Amazon, and it leaves us to this collision of crises we face. As exponentially destroying the ecosystem life depends on means the win-lose game becomes a lose-lose reality. And so the question is, how do we change the game from win-lose to win-for-all? I believe this is the next great experiment. This is the task of our generation. How do we change the game? So, fortunately, people have recognized this tragedy, and they're doing something about it. You know, B Corps, for benefit businesses, conscious capitalism, there's this monumental movement to do business differently, to clean up the shadow of this win-lose game of capitalism. And so we see this transition happening in all of these game dynamics. Businesses moving from an objective of short-term profit towards accomplishing a noble mission. Choice making shifting from command and control hierarchy to empowering and empathic leadership. The development of people moving towards training people for personal excellence and innovation. And motivation shifting from just incentives to maximize profit to incentives based on social and environmental results as well. And performance assessment shifting from a single bottom line to a triple bottom line, and benefit being more distributed, shared with value creators with commitments to ethical minimums like fair trade and living wage. And it's amazing that we have companies now that are exemplary in all of these different game dynamics, really showing that there can be a transition from a win-lose game towards a win-win game. And yet, is it the coordination system that we can bet on to help us navigate out of the crises we face? Is adding consciousness to capitalism really working? You know, I've been in this space for about 10 years, built a ranking called Game Changers 500 of the world's top for-benefit companies, helped advise on policy with government leaders, helped consult companies that are at the core of this movement. And over time, what I saw was that the companies that I praised as best for the world slide back into traditional capitalism, into that short-term profit motive. As the company sold, as they raised more capital, as the founder left, the game starts to become more like level one, the orange win-lose game. And this really threw me for a loop and was humbling to be praised and have an organization that relied on promoting this, and yet something inside myself saying, God, this is important, but it's not it. There's something more to really change the game. And I imagine a lot of you have felt that yourself through organizations that you've started or companies you've watched. And it leaves us to this point that we're at. And so what I'm going to share next is something that's been developing over the years that has been supported by people like Daniel, it's brilliant minds and hearts, who've helped frame a new game, something that isn't just a transitionary step beyond this existing one, but is actually a fundamentally new form, a fundamentally new shape. And I call it Win for All. So the objective in Win for All is to serve the common good. It's not a finite game of winners and losers. It's an infinite game where people play for the sake of enjoyment. It's not about trying to sell a company or exit or to end the game. It's about keeping the game going and serving the commons, prioritizing the commons is essential for that to happen. It's a transitionary leap, a paradigm shift from the concept of personal victory towards collective joy. Choice making in this game shifts as well. Choice making isn't about leadership where a few guide the many. It's about unleashing synergistic intelligence. It's recognizing we can create a meta mind that's vastly more wise than the sum of its parts. It's about nurturing people's ability to stand in their sovereignty so that they're available to be spontaneously moved into action, kind of like how a jazz band erupts and creates surprising music. It's a transition from the paradigm of leadership to the paradigm of sovereignty. Development. Development is a shift from training people to achieve a specific aim to nurturing their capacity to be coherent together, to nurturing their capacity to sense what is meaningful and make choices towards that. Rather than telling people what to do or what is good, it's about helping them come to those conclusions on their own so that they can feel inspiration rise, the inspiration that's born from the heart and acts in service of the whole. It's a paradigm shift from training to nurturing. And motivation is a shift from motivating people to achieve a specific outcome for themselves, and rather helping action arise from within, moving from an extrinsic motive to an intrinsic move, from acting to obtain something for themselves to acting because they're moved to act in service of the whole. And when you think about the greats throughout history, the Gandhis, this is what they've all done. They were available to receive insight. They had the agency to act courageously and to let them burst into action, where the insight allowed them to be unstoppable because it was sourced from source in service of the whole. How do we move to a system designed to unleash that human potential? This is a shift from motivation based on incentive to insight. Performance assessment. This is about moving from the limited scope of measurement to sense-making to assess quality of life. Because how do we measure the quality of the blue sky or the impact a stranger has on us, inspiring us? Or that thing that you couldn't even expect that was going to happen that transformed your life. So much of what is most meaningful isn't measurable. And so how do we collectively sense together what is meaningful rather than race towards what we assume is best? This is a transition from measurement to sense-making. And finally, benefit. This is about giving nature a spot on the balance sheet. It's about distributing benefit to all stakeholders. It's moving from hoarding to collective access. Because a system designed for collective access is one that keeps improving the commons and has a model that prioritizes the commons actually work in service of the whole, rather than a system oriented towards private possession, which creates radical duplication of goods, hoarding, unused resources, IP that is held rather than released, that could be synthesized and created more wins for all. This is a paradigm shift from private possession to collective access. And this is a game that's worth playing, don't you agree? This is a game that's worth experimenting with because it is an experiment. It's not a design. And when people are supported to have their values, have their needs met through the system, where they're nurtured to act on their insight, where they're supported with collective sense-making to make great choices, where their actions actually serve the commons and give back to the whole, where they're nurtured and healed so they can be clear in the choices they make. This is a process to create a game that's worth playing, a game that can be played indefinitely, a game that is infinite by design. And I believe this is why many of us are here, to be the game changers that help unleash a new game in the world, a new coordination system that helps a new system arise from emergence. And while there is a lot to do to have a new system emerge. Let's not forget who we need to be. Thank you, guys.